We're coming up on 3 years since Uvalde and 7 years since Santa Fe, since children have lost their lives in mass instances of violence in their schools, on the streets, and in their communities. And yet, nothing has been done. Our elected officials, even when we drape ourselves in T-shirts representing these victims' lives, they still choose to ignore us and walk into the Capitol past all of this without giving us an ounce of recognition. But what we are here to do today is show them that we have a majority of Texans. We are the gun sense majority in Texas because we know what we need to be safe. We know that raising the age to 21 would have saved those kids in Uvalde. We know that safe storage would have prevented the mass shooter at Santa Fe from bringing the gun to the school. We know that investments in community violence intervention are necessary to prevent instances of community violence, to bring us together, to heal, to prevent us from hurting and causing violence in our communities. We know this is what... It ain't right. It ain't right. Our lawmakers in this Capitol building look down upon us and refuse to take action. We know who they serve. We know who they are up against. Those who seek to use their power and influence to further their own political standing. Those gun industry actors who don't care who they're selling a gun to. It could be a felon, it could be a teacher, it could be a concerned parent. As long as they get the money, they don't care if they're selling to someone under the age of 21 who's more prone to commit violence. We know that we're fighting against a minority who calls common sense solutions that we advocate for radical, when what is radical is that over 250 children in Texas lose their lives to gun violence every single year. That is what's radical, not common sense. Make no mistake. The gun sense majority that is here today and is across the state of Texas is the majority. It's the majority in Texas, and it's the majority in the United States of America. We are the gun sense majority. We are students. We are gun owners. We are veterans. We are survivors. We are teachers. We are moms, and we are Texans. We are the majority that is going to fight for common sense solutions, and we will not back down until we set the agenda. The majority. We won't back down until we raise the age. We won't back down until we have safe storage, and we won't back down until we invest in our communities, because that is how we create a safer Texas for all. We will not back down. So thank you for standing with us today in the Coalition to Prevent Gun Violence. And thank you so much for being a part of this mission. And I cannot wait to hear about the conversations you have with our legislators today. So I'm privileged to introduce our first speaker of today, Mireya Rodriguez, who is a youth advocate with Students Demand Action at UT Dallas and is also a survivor of the Allen Mall shooting. Please come up, Mireya. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. My name is Mireya, and I am a volunteer leader with Students Demand Action, which is the largest student-led organization fighting to end gun violence. But, yeah, give yourself a round of applause. Thank you. However, I'm not just a volunteer. I'm also a gun violence survivor. Almost 2 years ago, I'm not used to saying it, I was a normal college student working a normal retail job at the Allen Premium Outlet Mall, and it was like any other day until it wasn't. That day quickly became the nightmare scenario that my generation has been forced to prepare our entire lives for. I'll never forget the sounds of rapid-fire gunshots, people screaming, sirens blaring from every direction. It wasn't until I was leaving the mall, after having seen the deceased gunman myself, that I realized I survived a mass shooting. I walked away alive that day, but my friend, who was one of 8, didn't. His memory is why I'm standing here now. I'm using my second chance to make a difference in this world, because ending gun violence is our generation's fight. Gun violence, as we know, is the leading cause of death for young people in America, and we cannot afford to sit on the sidelines and wait for adults to take action. Mass shootings don't just happen, and school shootings don't just happen. Gun violence in all of its forms does not just pop up. It is allowed, it is perpetuated, and it is worsened by politicians choosing to serve the gun lobby over the constituents that elected them. It is not fair that this burden has been placed on us, but politicians' failure to address gun violence means that we have to take action. Let me be crystal clear. Gun violence is an issue that impacts all of us. It doesn't matter which side of the political aisle you sit on, regardless of your background, your gender, race, identity. This crisis will find you. That's why we have to stand united on this, especially right now. As a Texas born and raised, I get how much our state values the Second Amendment, and that's okay. Because at the end of the day, we can all get behind wanting to keep ourselves, our families, and our community safe. But allowing guns, let alone weapons of war like the AR-15 that was used at my Allen Mall, to be carried anywhere by anyone at any time makes nobody safer. This is about having integrity over being irresponsible, which is a true Texan value. That's why we're calling on the legislature to do 2 simple things: raise the age to buy assault weapons and require gun owners to securely store their firearms. If you have to be 21 to purchase alcohol, you shouldn't be able to buy an assault weapon at 18. And if you're a gun owner, you should always practice secure storage, which means keeping a gun locked, unloaded, and away from ammunition when not being used. At the end of the day, it is that simple. It's not rocket science, y'all. It's a few basic steps that can save countless lives. In an average year, over 4,000 people die by guns in Texas. And mind you, the Texas legislature meets every other year, meaning if lawmakers fail to pass gun safety bills this session, it'll be 2027 by the time they are back in session, and more than 8,000 lives could be taken before we have another chance like this again. We have to meet this moment. I hope you all will join me in the fight to keep Texas safe and promote responsible gun ownership, because take it from me, our lives depend on it. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Stephen Kling. I'm a senior ambassador for the state of Texas for Giffords Gun Owners for Safety. I'm also a former captain of the United States Army, a combat veteran of Iraq and Afghanistan, and most relevant, during my time in uniform, I served as commander of a small arms training team at Camp Bullis, Texas, just down the road from here. But I'm also the father of 2 children in Texas public schools, and that's why I'm really here. By name and mission, Giffords Gun Owners for Safety restores the voice of reason, respect, honor, and chiefly concern for the safety of our children and greater communities that represent the vast majority of gun owners in America. Unlike our opponents who claim to speak for gun owners but really represent the death merchants of the gun lobby, We do not operate out of fear or paranoia or pursuit of profit, but out of love and concern for our fellow Texans, out of a sincere desire for all of our children to live with the same peace of mind that we did when we were kids. We have a unique voice in this movement. We have spent countless hours lobbying state capitals and across the country and in the halls of Congress. And our voices are authoritative and effective. Our encounters with elected officials can be transformational. We exist to remind those elected officials what it is that we, the people, actually want, and to dispel the lies and disinformation that misrepresent our purpose. The lies that attempt to obscure the proven efficacy and intent of gun safety legislation. We want leaders who will enforce safe storage, transfer, and trade. We want leaders who will promote the importance of training. We want leaders who will keep family members safe from those who may be at risk of hurting themselves or others. And we want leaders who will hold those accountable who refuse to act responsibly. Poll after poll shows us that this is exactly what we, the people, want, and exposes the one-party rule of this state for their lack of accountability, for not delivering laws that reflect our will. 85% of Texans support mandatory background checks on all gun sales, including 78% of Republicans. And 88% now support red flag laws that empower a judge to temporarily keep guns away from those proven to be at risk of harming themselves or others. I could go on with the statistics, but Nicole's going to handle some of those for you, so I'll skip a few of these. But you get the idea. We are ones who speak for the real gun owners of this country. And the gun owners want gun safety legislation, and they want their kids to go to schools and feel safe. We all do. None of these politicians none of these policies come anywhere close to violating the constitutional rights of all law-abiding citizens. But what they do is protect our communities and our families and our kids. It's simple. We, the people, insist that people who threaten our safety should have a very, very hard time obtaining a firearm. And we, the people, expect responsible Texans to understand that a minor inconvenience of a background check means peace of mind, that they are participating in a process that protects their community and all of our children. Those who demand rights without accepting the responsibilities that come with those rights are selfish and childish people. That is not how the good guys behave. Good guys support laws that protect their community first and foremost. Those who think only of themselves or for profit or for personal gain, people like Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick, whose pathetic so-called leadership has led to 63% increases in gun deaths in Texans, they are not the good guys. And we should all understand exactly which side they are on.
Thank you so much, Steve. I think your words really demonstrate what we're here for, responsible gun ownership. And next, before our next speaker, I'd just quickly like to acknowledge that Senator Molly Cook and Representative Jean Wu are standing in solidarity with us on stage. And Representative Bryant as well. Next up is Kim Rubio, who is a mother of a victim of the Uvalde shooting and works with Lives Robbed to help work towards prevention of gun violence.
My name is Kimberly Rubio, and I'm the president of Lives Robbed. It is a gun violence prevention organization that I co-founded with Gloria Cáceres and Veronica Mata. Our daughters, Lexi, Jackie, and Tess, were victims of the Uvalde school shooting that occurred nearly 3 years ago. As we've walked with grief, we've also embarked on a mission to end gun violence, and that's why we're here today, to support Raise the Age. Because if this bill had been law in May of 2022, 19 children and 2 teachers would still be with us today. So we march with you all, we rally. We were in that church with you today as Senator Roland Gutierrez detailed the images of children gunned down in classrooms. Those are our children. Daughters, sons. They deserved better. They deserved to be safe at school. We can't wait for the next tragedy. The time for change is now. So thank you for showing up today, for joining us in the fight to save lives. And when you're in your meetings today, remind them that we're not going anywhere.
Thank you, Kim, for sharing your story with us. Next, I'd like to introduce Ovidia Molina, who is the president of the Texas State Teachers Association.
Hello, everybody. I am Ovidia Molina, a proud middle school teacher serving as president of the Texas State Teachers Association. I am honored to stand with other members of the Texas Coalition to Prevent Gun Violence to do just that. Put an end to gun violence, not only in our schools, but also everywhere else in our communities. Tragically, we know that the governor and the legislature simply aren't doing enough. Far from it. I've had enough of their inaction, and I know you have too. As we have witnessed all too often, political inaction against gun violence is traumatizing and deadly. Even after the school shootings in Santa Fe and Uvalde, lawmakers and the governor have done nothing to keep guns out of our schools. Instead, they have enacted laws to put more guns in our schools. House Bill 3, the so-called school safety law enacted in 2023, requires school districts to put armed peace officers at every school campus in Texas. But many districts haven't complied with the law because the legislature didn't provide enough funding. They just want us to believe they're doing something, and they're not. To fill the gaps, lawmakers want to make it easier for teachers and other school employees with minimal gun safety training to substitute for professional peace officers. They just want to add one more thing to their already heavy plate. Some legislatures also want to make it easier for school employees to carry guns on campus through the school marshal and in school guardian programs. This is not the solution everywhere. This is not the solution. It is not up to educators to do more when they will not do anything. The only guns in our school campuses should be in the possession of trained peace officers, and it should be up to locally elected school boards to decide whether to hire them. TSCA opposes the state mandate for arming peace officers, and teachers, and educators, and we oppose arming them when they are not trained peace officers. Our students deserve better. Most teachers, and you heard it right here, upwards of 80% say they won't carry a gun to school. They don't want to double as armed security guards. That is not what they are trained to do. And as a middle school teacher, I can tell you that when we are looking at the eyes of our students, because many of these children are our students, We are filled with emotion to protect them and to protect us. We cannot shoot. If trained peace officers can't do it 100%, imagine having to do it while trying to take care of your children against your child. It's unimaginable. They recognize the deadly disadvantage most of them would face against a heavily armed suicidal assailant and the emotions that come with defending your students' lives. "19 children and 2 teachers were killed and others wounded, as you heard, when an 18-year-old man shot up Rubb Elementary School in Uvalde 3 years ago. Semi-automatic rifle that was legally purchased. The families of the victims begged the legislature in 2023 to pass a minimal, very reasonable law to prohibit younger than 21-year-olds to purchase such weapons. The legislature refused. As they almost always do, they voted for the gun lobby over people's lives. During the past year, there were more than 350 disciplinary actions for firearms violations in Texas schools. Each one of those cases could have resulted in more deaths, and tragically, some did. Texas has gun storage law that is supposed to keep firearms out of the hands of children, but it needs to be stronger. We educators repeat our demand that lawmakers pass sensible gun reform laws to protect our students, educators, and their communities. They could begin by strengthening the gun storage law and doing more to keep guns out of the hands of our youth and those with documented dangerous histories. We started out with the thoughts and prayers chant. We hear their thoughts and prayers. We hear that line from the same officials after every tragedy. And it's after every tragedy. We must back up their thoughts and prayers with legislation action that really addresses the problem and makes our students safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Ovidia, for your work in helping to keep our schools safe. I know as a young person, we all really appreciate it. Before our final speaker, I would just like to acknowledge that Senators Eckhart and Senators Menendez are also with us today. Our coalition is growing as we speak. Amen. And finally, I'd like to introduce Executive Director of Moms Demand Action, Angela Farrell-Zavala.
Hey, y'all. Thank you, Jasir and Mireya and Steve, Kim, Ovidia, and then Nicole here. Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Is it still morning? I'm not sure, but good morning if it is. I am Angela Farrell-Zavala, and I am proud to serve as Executive Director of Moms Demand Action. And together with Students Demand Action in every town for gun safety, we are the largest grassroots movement working to end gun violence in America. I'm so grateful for the legislative champions that are here with us today, and I'm so excited to be surrounded by so many incredible volunteers, survivors, students, and partners. We're going to spend today talking about how we're going to solve this crisis, which is the #1 killer of kids in this country. But I also want to take a second to talk about why we're here. There have already been 29 people shot and injured or killed in mass shootings across Texas this year. And it's not even March. We're still in February, y'all. Each of those lives was an entire world stolen. And it means lifelong grief for their loved ones. For some of us, That kind of pain is something we can't even imagine. But for others, including many here today, it's their daily reality. I want to take a moment for us to just moment of silence and think about all the survivors of gun violence that are here with us today, but aren't here, can't be here. We can't keep living like this, y'all. We need our lawmakers to wake up and show up for us, and that's exactly what we're going to make clear today. Because we can't afford to take no for an answer. Y'all going to take no for an answer? There might be extremists in that Capitol building playing politics with our lives, but I believe that the power of the people is so much greater than the people in power. And I want to make something clear, y'all. Our fight isn't against the Second Amendment. I am so sick and tired of hearing this. I am tired. It is so played and so old. I'm tired of it. In fact, our movement includes so many gun owners, many of them survivors, who are advocating right alongside us. This is about common sense. Our kids are being shot and killed. No matter where you stand politically, no one can be okay with that. That's our common ground, so let's start there. If we all face that reality, we can move towards the solutions that we know will save lives. It's common sense that we have a law requiring the secure storage of firearms. How many stories of children finding an unsecured firearm and shooting themselves or someone else must we hear before we say enough is enough? It's common sense to fund community violence intervention programs because our communities know better than anyone what they need. And these programs have proven to save lives, break cycles of violence, and help get the people most at risk. It's common sense that if you're not even old enough to buy a beer, you sure as hell shouldn't be old enough to buy a deadly weapon. Outrageous. Especially considering that 18 to 20-year-olds commit gun homicides at triple the rate of adults. And one of those 18-year-olds, the shooter in Uvalde, who was able to purchase 2 assault rifles after his 18th birthday without raising an alarm. This stuff isn't controversial. It's what we know works. I know that our political landscape is changing in the White House and in states across this country, and it's no secret that we're going to face some new challenges in our movement. But y'all, our call is bigger than this moment. 11 years in, almost 12 years from Moms Demand Action, we know how to do this work. We know how to win, and we're not going to let up. We are the ones in touch with American people, not our opposition. So now is not the time to retreat. It's not the time to retreat, y'all. It's the time to get more creative, more strategic, and more relentless. We have to keep showing out in the Capitol and having tough conversations with our neighbors and running our own volunteers for office. Thank you. And by the way, if you want to learn more about working on campaigns or running for office yourself, so many of you here, stop by our Demand a Seat presentation during lunch at the Legislative Conference Center. Just a little something for you there. No matter what you do, just know there is always ground to gain. It takes time to create the type of change our movement is fighting for, and it might be slow and incremental, but clearly it is not linear. And that's why we need you to keep fighting until we can all learn, play, shop, pray, and simply exist without the constant threat of gun violence. We aren't letting up. Thanks for having me here today, y'all. Now let's get to work.
Angela's a hard one to follow. Hi, I'm Nicole Golden. I'm the Executive Director of Texas Gun Sense and proud convener of the Texas Coalition to Prevent Gun Violence. In 2023, 4,561 Texans were shot and killed. Make no mistake, these acts of gun violence were preventable. And some survivors are here with us today. You've heard from some of them. And we want you to know we see you. We're here together because we refuse to sit back while the Texas legislature fails to prevent tragedies. But we are the majority. We are the majority, proven by a recent poll that shows 85% of Texans, including 78% of Republicans, support raising the age to purchase semi-automatic rifles to 21. 89% of Texans support background checks for all gun purchases, including 84% of Republicans. 88% of Texans, including 81% of Republicans, support extreme risk protection orders, we also call them red flag laws, that give family members or law enforcement the ability to petition courts to temporarily remove guns from someone who poses a violent threat to themselves or others. We are the majority. Say it with me. We are the majority. And our movement is strong. Look. Last session, the bill the Uvalde families fought for passed out of committee with a bipartisan vote. And we together advanced legislation to get secure gun storage information into the hands of Texas parents. The road is long, but incremental progress works. When we fight, we win. You are here today because you are the ones who show up, the ones who fight, the ones who refuse to accept gun violence as just inevitable. So take this energy into every meeting, every conversation, and make sure they know we're watching, we're organized, and we will not back down. Say it again. We are the majority. We are the majority. And we won't back down. Thank you, cheerleaders. Okay, so down to just a few logistics from here on out. In a moment, we're going to take some group photos, and then we're going to line up to get back together with your group leaders if you separated after the church or if you just got here. You can find a number on your name tag. If you're confused, find a volunteer, we'll help you. Then we're going to head inside, we're going to grab lunch, and then with your groups, you're going to go to lawmakers' offices, okay? And if you need help, we're here to help you. Thank you so much, each and every one of you, for being here with us and being the voice of the majority. Thank you.